Good morning to you. Hope you're well today. Today I'm going to speak to you a little bit about having bold expectations. And it's easy for me to sit here and say you've got to expect big things, but for you, when you look at maybe the circumstances in your life and things that you're working through, you maybe today, hopefully not, but your expectation is that you're just going to get through. And as believers in the kingdom today, we are not called to just believe that we're going to get through, we're going to survive. Survival instinct kicks in when you look at a situation and you're just desperate to get out of there, to be rescued. Now, we have access to everything we need to stand in these days, to contend for the promises of God, to wage warfare with the promises that God has already given us. And so I really believe that today God is calling us, you and I as believers, to have bold expectations in Him. That means to expect Him to do the things that He promised. We need a bit of boldness. We need a little bit of spiritual guts, if I can say that, to believe, in spite of what we see and what we hear, that God is still going to do what He said He was going to do. And so when I talk about having bold expectations in God, I think about Isaiah 54, how it says in the scriptures, sing, O barren, you who have not borne. When you look at your life and you cannot see any fruit of your prayers, it feels as if heaven has gone silent, as if you've been put on pause. The Bible here still says, sing, O barren, you who have not borne. The last thing you feel like doing is singing, but it's the most powerful thing you can do is to still stand and praise. And even if it starts out as a whisper, that you're thanking God for what He has promised you, because He is faithful. And then it says here in verse 2, enlarge the place of your tent. Let them stretch out the curtains of your dwellings. Do not spare, lengthen your cords and strengthen your stakes. You strengthen the stakes, the place where the tent peg gets knocked into the ground, it gets hammered into the ground, because the deeper that goes, the stronger the tent is going to be. It's not going to be blown away by the wind. And I really believe that as God is saying, it's time for you and I to have bold expectations, to be courageous, to be men and women of valor in the kingdom today, bravery, courage, value, worth, because that's how He sees us. When our foundation is in Him and in the promises that He has made us, in the promises He has made to His church, that tent peg is being hammered in so securely and so firmly that when the winds come, when the opposition comes, when the lies come, the accusations, every wind of doctrine that is not of God, the things that bring division, that tent peg is so securely fastened. Your faith is secure in Him, not in what other people have said, not in what you've imagined or dreamed, but what does the Word of God say, and what has He said to you? That becomes your security. And so you can continue to have bold expectations. But when I read through the Bible, there were a lot of really men and women of faith who did great things, but it wasn't because they were also full of faith and they had it all together. It was because they believed something that God had said to them. I think of Abraham at the time. God said, go to a land that I'm going to show you. And he believed that God would show him. He took the step, and as he took the step, God began to show him and made a covenant with him. And so I thought of this woman in the book of Judges chapter 4, and her name was Jael, and how she was the one who she took a tent peg, and she, with a hammer, and she put it in the head of the enemy, Sisera, the captain of the enemies of God's people. And she was the one who, he said to her, he was running away from the battle, and he said, she brought him into her tent, and he was sleeping, and she took a tent peg and a hammer and hammered it into his head. Now, this woman, Jael, just happened, there's no coincidence with God. But she just happened to be positioned at the doorway to her tent when Sisera came past and said, can I come in here? And now it was not the done thing for a woman to allow a man into her tent, a man that she didn't know. And so I believe that this woman positioned there, it was all orchestrated by God. And she just took the opportunity, because when she killed Sisera, that was the beginning of the downfall of the battle against God's people. And so maybe today you feel that you've got nothing to offer, that all you do is just stand around and wait. Maybe you need to begin to look at it a different way, that wherever you feel as if you're marking time, standing around and waiting, God has a bigger purpose. And as you wait, as you are listening for the Word of God, as you're reading the Word of God, and you continue to pray, and you stop thinking that you're wasting time by waiting around, maybe get out Isaiah 54 and say, Lord, help me to increase my expectation today, because that's what Isaiah 54 is all about. Enlarge the place of your tent. You know, it's not telling you to go out and buy a bigger tent and put it up in your garden. It's saying increase your capacity to listen to me. And as you listen to me, you're going to hear more. And you know what happens when you hear? Your expectation is increased. And without expectation, if we don't expect to hear from God, we're not going to be listening for his voice. If we don't expect a breakthrough, we might miss it when it comes. Our expectation has a whole lot to do with our faith. So Isaiah 54 is speaking to me about expect more. And it says in Isaiah 54, don't spare, lengthen your cords, strengthen your stakes. And I believe this God that we serve is calling us to expect even more than we've seen. You've heard me say, other people have said 2024 is the year for more. But what God said to me, it's more grace, overflowing grace. And that means his divine enablement, his divine empowerment, undergirding us, strengthening us, so that we can be who he says that we are in his word. We need his grace. And so more grace for you in 2024. So all you need to do is say, God, help me to increase my expectation, my faith, because faith and expectation are required today. So that even if you feel like this woman standing at the doorway of her tent, God has a plan for you that can spark off a revival in your family. He's got a plan for you to bring a breakthrough to you that's going to change the lives of people around you. So remember that expectation. Be bold, be courageous, because God is with you and you can expect to see him do what he promised he would do for you. Have a fantastic day today.